Hey everyone, I'm Johanna, yoga and meditation teacher, Reiki master, sound healing practitioner, and sacred cacao facilitator. You're listening to the Vibrational Shift podcast, dedicated to people looking to reconnect with themselves. Together, we'll explore different energy healing modalities, meditations, breathwork, sound healing, and so much more. Are you ready to experience a vibrational shift with me? Hello, and welcome back to the Vibrational Shift podcast. It's me, Johanna, your host. I can't believe that the summer is almost over, and in about a week, I'm going to be celebrating my birthday. I hope you'll come celebrate with me at the Sacred Self-Love Community Healing Circle that I'm hosting this Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time virtually. You can head over to lunaserenity.com under events, and you'll see it listed. It is completely free. On Sunday, we're going to do a deeply nourishing yoga nidra and sound bath. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you all about the self-love course that I've been pouring my heart and soul into over the last couple of months. Plus, everyone who joins is going to get first access to some pretty incredible early bird specials, plus first dibs to submit your application. And guess what? Only the first 5 people to register are going to get a ton of extra goodies. You'll have to register to get the details, but don't worry. Even if you can't join, still sign up. You'll get the replay and email with all of the details as soon as the session ends. All right. So this week, I decided to bring back a few past retreat guests to talk about their experience from last year's Sacred Self-Love Retreat, specifically the Temazcal. A Temazcal ceremony is a traditional healing and purifying ritual originating from the indigenous populations of Mexico and Central America, particularly the Aztec and Maya civilizations. The ceremony takes place in a Temazcal, which is a small dome-shaped structure symbolizing the womb of Mother Earth. Participants enter this heated structure, typically achieved through the use of volcanic stones and steam, with the intent of experiencing a spiritual rebirth. The ceremony is often led by a guide or a shaman and includes chanting, meditation, and herbal therapy. It's believed to cleanse both the body and mind, promoting physical health and spiritual well-being. During a Temazcal ceremony, participants enter the dome-shaped heated structure, which is usually dark and warm due to the volcanic stones and steam used to heat it. This heat and humidity promote intense sweating, which is believed to release toxins and impurities from the body. The shaman or guide leading the ceremony will often use various herbs and incenses, which are thought to assist in the cleansing process. Chanting and meditation are integral to the ceremony, allowing participants to focus their minds and engage in introspective thought. Many individuals report experiencing mental clarity and heightened self-awareness following the ceremony. The entire process is considered a metaphorical rebirth, symbolizing the release of negativity and welcoming of renewed health and spirituality. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with past retreat guests Roxi and Brenda as we talk about our experiences during the Temazcal. I'll catch you on the other side. 2 former Sacred Self-Love retreat guests on with me today, Roxi and Brenda. And fun fact, I think they've been on Brenda's been on every retreat with me because she's a very talented photographer. And whenever I can have her around, I pull her along. She is Brenda Maya of the Doula Tog on Instagram. And then Roxi, who is the owner of Alchemy Hair Salon in Silver Spring, Maryland. I've known both of them for several years. Roxi I've known for more than half my life, I think, actually. I was thinking about that the other day. I was talking about how I know you and that I've known you for a very long time. And Brenda was actually, fun fact, was my doula and birth photographer. And a lot of the beautiful pictures you see on Instagram and on my website have actually been taken by Brenda. So I brought them on today because I wanted to have a whole conversation around one of the experiences that we did last summer at the Sacred Self-Love Retreat. It was a Temazcal. And I know we had a few weeks ago Tanya and Karina on that were talking about their experiences from the Sacred Self Love Retreat on one of the days that we were there, which was an excursion. But this was a whole nother set of exciting adventures that we went on as a group on, I want to say it was like the fourth day of the 7-day retreat. And we did an experience called Temazcal, and it is basically a steam temple, or also meant to represent the mother's womb of Mother Earth. And when we went into it, I think all of us had never done one before, had never experienced anything like that. It's an ancient practice. The way to explain it is almost not going to do it justice compared to being in there, having the experience. And for all of us that were there, this was our first time going through it. When we went in, I will admit that I was very excited and I didn't know what to anticipate, but I knew that there was going to be a shift, that something was going to change for me during this process, like during this. I think we ended up being in there for several hours. They had said it could be 90 minutes up to a couple of hours. We had a group of 13 of us. I think it was 13 of us. When we went in, I think one of the things that stuck out to me about how powerful this was going to be is that there was actually a couple on the trip with us. And when we were going into the Temazcal, they were told to sit separate, because when two people have been together, are in a relationship, that their energy needed to be broken up within the Temazcal, is what I remember them saying as we were going in, right? So we did our Temazcal at a place in Tulum called Espiritu Wellness, and we had an amazing guide. And when we began, we started off with rinsing our bodies off first in the showers. I don't know if you guys remember that. We started off with rinsing ourselves off, and then we went and we gathered around and we were cleansed one by one as we entered into the Temazcal. And when you go in, it is so low, you have to basically crawl in. And once you went in, if you were the first one, you had to crawl all the way around in one direction to get to the other side. And so we all went in one by one by one. And the practice that I loved, or one of the things that I didn't, because I had never done one before, that I was the most excited about was each of us had a chance. They would bring these hot rocks in as we were going in, and we each had a chance to place our intentions into the rocks and kind of seal the intention together. So I'm going to stop there, and I would love to let either Brenda or Roxy maybe pick up the story or talk a little bit more about what was running through your mind as we began. Like I said, this was not something that took 20 minutes, 30 minutes. We were in there for several hours. I want to say almost 3 hours between all of the there's different doors that we traveled through in the Temazcal. And so there was a short break, but we never left the actual Temazcal. So it took us several hours to go through the entire ceremony. So Roxy or Brenda, I'm curious to hear, what was running through your mind as we arrived to Espiritu, because remember, it was like tucked behind this really pretty, it was like a restaurant, but in the back was this entire wellness that was like a wellness oasis kind of tucked behind the back end there. And we did a sound bath before we went in. So I'm just curious, maybe set the scene. What were you guys thinking as we went to the back?
I love that we did a sound bath before to really like set the mood and like get some rest. I'm pretty sure I like fell asleep. I fell asleep at some point there. Um, I think I was a little nervous about the breathing. Like when I think back to that trip, I always think back and like feel like that's where I learned how to breathe. We go throughout life like just not taking those deep, deep breaths, and I had to take lots of deep breaths in Mexico. So um I was a little worried about like being in there with the smoke and focusing on my breath.
How about you, Roxy? What was running through your mind before we went in? So, like, as we were leaving the sound bath and then walking to where they had that, remember they had like that open fire going where they were heating up all of the stones.
Yeah, I mean, with me, there's always like two sides of everything, right? The human in me and then the spiritual in me. And, being there, because I remember walking in and seeing like the koi fish pond and like this place was so cute and it was behind this restaurant. The whole experience, I was like, oh my God, this is so cute. Johanna, how did you find this place? And you were like, it's glorious. And I'm like, what? So like, you know, things happen in life and you put things in motion and you don't realize like where you end up. And here I was ending up at this place that I kind of started, I kind of helped put this in motion. Like, and I was dumbfounded. I was like, what? Like it hadn't even dawned on me. So spiritually, I felt like I was in the right place, right? I brought this in. I was in the right place. But I was nervous, right? I'm claustrophobic. So the human in me is like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? Like, I don't want to be like odd man out. I don't want to, all the nervous things, but I was strategic. I was last in line. I made sure that I was like close to the opening. Like, so I was going through these two different things. I was so incredibly thankful to be there. And being in a group with this like wonderful crew of people. So I knew that I was going to be safe, but at the same time, I was like, my nerves were the unexpected, right? It was the unexpected, but we had already had like such a wonderful trip, therefore, so I knew that I was in the right place at the right time, you know?
Yeah. So two things that you guys both mentioned, Brenda, the breath piece. I almost forgot. I was nervous about it because they were telling us like if you need to breathe, like once we had got before we went in there, they were like the air is going to be harder to breathe up top, so you can always come down lower. And once I got in there and I was like, wait, I'm already pretty low. I'm gonna have to have like my face on the ground in order to breathe. Yeah, so the breath piece was a big one. And that was one of the things I had almost completely forgotten about until you mentioned that right now. And Roxy, you did set this in motion. So you mentioned Gloria. She is actually one of the people that I reached out to. I know you had said, I have someone that I know that actually lives in Tulum, and I reached out to her. I set up time to chat with her. She happened to be home here in DC, and so I caught up with her, and she told me about Espiritu and told me about the wellness center that she had been working at, and that was actually, you were the connection there. You were the glue of why we ended up there and not at one of the several other Temazcal places that are available to do within Tulum. So once we went in, right, we went through a cleansing with copal, with the smoke being run over us, and we had to slowly make our way in. And they're guiding us on like, even if you think that you can't handle it, know that you can. And when they put in the first few rocks, so in at the Temazcal, what happens is they're heating up rocks over an open fire. Sometimes they're wrapped in herbs, but these stones are so hot that they're actually glowing red when they come in. And when we went in, we went, like I said, one by one, we got to put our intentions into these rocks, and they were opening up the four directions. We honored, and with each door that we went through, we were honoring a different direction. And it was so beautiful to hear the story, how it unveiled, because it also mirrored kind of the changes that can happen in our life. The north, like knowing how to walk the true path, east, west, and south. So each one, for me as a facilitator, I'm like taking it all in. I'm also holding back a little bit because I had to like keep time, make sure that we were gonna like get where we needed to go. So I can't wait to go back and do it just like as a person doing it. But when we went into that first door, there was also that anticipation that you mentioned, Roxy, like that feeling of, oh my goodness, like what's about to happen? And am I going to have a huge transformation at the end of this? Like my mind was going into all of these different places. And I was also thinking about you guys too, right? Like we're all doing something we've never done before. And, hoping that you guys would get something out of it. When they closed that first door, is what they called it. There's like a little awning and an opening over this beautiful womb that we're in, right? It's pitch black. You cannot see anything. What did you guys think when that first door came down?
Well, I was very much ready to like allow myself to be like emotional. I was going through lots of chaos in that time in my life. Um, and the darkness helped. All of like the guidance that the facilitator provided was really helpful too. I like sobbed like crazy in there. Like I remember like starting to hear like the first few people just crying, and I was like, here it comes. Like it's just gonna run through me. And I actually wrote something when I was on the plane to like remember that experience, because to this point I can smell the herbs. Like right now, that was like the most beautiful like sensory experience for me. Like the grapefruit was the most delicious thing to smell, and like the rosemary, um,
Yeah.
the
I,
ruda.
I forgot about the grapefruit, but as soon as you said that, it was like I could feel it in my nostrils, like that scent that just took over the entire space. Beautiful. Did you want to
Yeah,
share what you wrote or?
I wrote. I can share a little bit. It's actually in Spanish. I wrote it in Spanish. So um I wrote something about like estoy lista para dejar todas mis penas, para celebrar este renacimiento, to like I was really allowing myself to like let my body flow through and like cry it out. Cry it out and experience like a rebirth in there. I think I really like set everything out of me. Yeah.
How about you, Roxy? What were you thinking when that first door came down and we were immersed in darkness?
It helped me. Brenda had mentioned, life in chaos, right? And we always have these moments of chaos. And for me, it always feels like a tornado. Like my chaos is constantly like this winding circle. And so like when they closed it and I knew that I could go a little bit further down, breathe if I needed to breathe, I had options. And that like was really big for me, that I still had options, even though I was here in this womb. And I was experiencing something I had no idea what was going to happen. I still had the options, and it actually allowed me to slow down this tornado and like, even like the four doors, it allowed me to stop and slow down and get out of that chaos. And I don't know, it slowed me down. I don't know how else to put it, but it just gave me a lot of peace. It allowed me to be safe inside of this womb, and it was really, I don't know, symbolic of like being in your mom's womb, right? We were in the womb of this Mother Earth, and it was just really, really peaceful and connected. I felt really, really connected at that point and safe. Even though, again, going back to the human in me, feeling like, oh my God, what is happening? I still had a feeling of safety, and there was something really beautiful about that.
Do you two remember something that they said? And it just dawned on me right now as you were talking, Roxy, that the womb and that the Temazcal that we were going into is the place where the sun goes to die, right? That's why there was darkness, and that this was going to be our death and coming out of this reborn. I almost forgot that that was the language that was used. And there was something that was so powerful about the storytelling of what was happening as we were being guided through it, that when we got to the second door, if I'm not confused, it could have either been the second or the third, when we were invited to bring sound in, which I love sound, right? So I was like, oh my goodness, here we go. Everyone got an instrument. I think it was the second door. Everyone got an instrument. They were passing around flutes, shakers, like rattles, and a drum. We're in pitch black, right? So I can't see anything. But I was like, I want the drum. I want the drum. And the acoustics that were in the Temazcal were crazy. Because, like you said, Brenda, when you heard people starting to cry, one thing that really struck me was that it sounded like it was the person right next to me, but I knew that it was the person all the way across from me. And,
Yes.
and so there was something about that that also heightened the experience. Like you said, it was a sensory experience. And it was because I was using the scent, I was using sound, but I had no vision. And there's something about not being able to see where you're going. There's fear in it, like you mentioned, Roxy, but there's also like this trust. And And it was a yeah. And I felt like it was a beautiful reminder to have trust in the not knowing, trust that obviously we were going to make it out of this. But it was like at the same time, having trust and faith that even when life gets bumpy, when things feel hard, having the faith that you will have a transformation, a change, and something will shift for you. And so I was thinking about that as you two are talking right now. Like, I forgot they did say as we walked in that there was going to be the death of who we were because we were going to be reborn at the end of it.
I have to say though, like going in there felt like I was following people in, right? I was following this situation. But once I was in, I felt like I was carried. And so like even as I'm hearing you like talk right now, like the entire time with the trust, I felt like I was being carried versus like me just following in, you know?
To kind of describe that feeling because you knew that she was going to guide us, she was going to hold us to have the space to kind of move through everything. So when the second door, once we entered into like that second round, it was a little bit longer, right? And there was a sense of freedom to not only make as much noise as we wanted, as loud as we wanted with the instruments we had, but also with our own voices. That was something freeing about that. So I'm curious, what did that feel like for both of you?
So I didn't get an instrument purposely. I didn't want an instrument. I was drumming the life out of my legs. That when I left there, I actually like I was I had some like marks. I was just like really feeling my body and like moving along with like the rhythm. I'm like I can still feel like the vibration in me. Um, yeah.
I actually didn't get an instrument either. I had one, and I think when you said I want a drum, I was like, okay, pass her the drum, give her the drum, you know. And so I didn't get one either. But you know what? I had the sound of laughter. I was laughing, but like this, like I'm so happy laughter. You know what I mean? It was like this is amazing. So I was just smiling like the entire every time I heard the drums and like the howling and all of this stuff. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I also had light language come in, you know, and for you guys that don't understand light language, it's just sounds that come out of your mouth, and I was literally sounds are coming out of my mouth that I don't quite understand sometimes, but they speak and it says something. So that was also coming through.
That's interesting that both of you didn't have an instrument. The first round, right? She let us go for a long time in there with the sound. And I remember thinking, I'm going to break this drum. But then there were times where I felt, and I feel this sometimes in sound baths too, when I'm like leading group, like feeling into what's happening around me, but also coming into also wanting silence. At one point, I felt like I needed to stop the drums so that I could hear the other sounds that were happening. And again, as a facility, as like they're trying to have my own experience, but also watching, and not watching because I couldn't see anything, but listening, I could tell that something was changing in the energy of the Temazcal. Like there was this opening that was happening, that there was this release that people were letting out. And it was beautiful to experience. You know, sometimes when I lead breath work in person, I'll guide people to go to that place of making sounds. And some people won't make any because there is kind of like the fear of being seen. But I think having that complete darkness to just be as loud as you want to be, to release what you want to release can be so powerful. When we opened up that second door, because it got really hot in there, right? And it was really intense. And this in between the second and third door was open for quite a while. So we could get like that fresh air that started to circulate through there because they were getting ready to bring in the herbs for us to have the cleansing with the herbs. And that was probably one of my favorite pieces that we got to do, right? They handed us a bundle of herbs that we then kind of cleansed ourselves with. And during this part, I just remember thinking like, I'm getting so much out of this because there's like the tactile and like hitting myself literally with these herbs. And what I was trying to remove and cleanse for myself. I'm curious, how did that part of the Temazcal feel for you all?
It was by far my favorite part. So Brenda was actually sitting on one of the openings and I was sitting on the other opening, now that I'm thinking about it. And so we were directly behind her. And so as she was, doing the praying and the, with all the herbs, we were actually getting the backsplash of all of that, right? But it was like absolutely the best part of it. You're going through this whole thing, but we don't really bring in smell into experiences very often. And smell like really tied it together. Like my memories, like again, like just like we spoke earlier, like that smell, the freshness, the part of the earth, like it was just so incredibly refreshing. And then it kind of like married into her words, right? So you have this like scent and then you have these words coming through and this energy. And it just was, I don't know, I feel like the scent and the smell of all of the essences that were happening just kind of tied it all together. Like that just, it fills my heart. It really does. It seems so silly, but man, it was amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely my favorite part. I can smell everything when I think about it. I can feel the splashing in my face of like grapefruit and rosemary and ruda.
I think lemongrass was in there too. Was lemongrass in there? I don't know. The grapefruit was really strong. It was amazing.
The grapefruit was like my favorite. So
Yeah, I remember you as you were saying that right now that you and Brenda were on the end. I remember coming out of there and you were like, I kept getting a face full of it. Like that, because every time, because she was also our guide that was in there throughout, like we would get sprinkled with water. So she would dip her hand into this bucket. She would douse the herbs in this water that had the grapefruit. It had all of these other herbs in there. And so I guess when she would kind of take her hand out and reach back to go forward around the circle, it must have been hitting both of you. So maybe that's also the reason why the scent of like the scent smell is something that is so strong for both of you. When we started the final round, when I think about one of the things they also shared with us as we were before we started the experience, and even as we were going through it, it was also a reminder that, our energy is linked to everything in the world, that there is this sense of oneness and that us coming together, like we each brought our own energy in there to create like its own separate bubble of energy. We went into the final door, the final portal. It was all about rebirth. This part of the story of what was used to kind of guide us through this last round as we were in there. Number one, I was drenched. I was like, we were all in our bathing suits, right? And I think I was like just a puddle. My hair was wet, like fully soaked through everything. She mentioned what it's like when we are going through a rebirth, or even like when the day is starting over again, right? We started in darkness, but we were going to come up with like the rising of the sun. There is this glimmer of sunrise and the dawn time. Like you can still see the glimmer of sun coming through. And for me, mentally and visually, like that door is what that is tied to in my mind. And I remember thinking like, feeling like something had changed, something had shifted in me, and that the storytelling that was a part of that, the physical part, right? Like the sweat, the smell, the heat, having to like confront those parts of yourselves like where you were like, I don't know if I can do this any longer. And just when you felt like that, the door would come up and then there'd be like a surge of fresh air that would come through. As she was talking about us being reborn, that's where I got emotional. Like I got emotional thinking about like place and in time for me, where I know that Johanna, who walked into this Temazcal maybe a few hours ago, is now going to be different. There's something that has changed because of the physical aspect of what we just did, but the spiritual aspect as well. And so when I heard her talking about like the sunrise, it's always like the reminder that even in darkness, there will be light again. And so that was probably my favorite. Like, yes, every door had its own beauty in it, but for me, that one was the one that really stuck with me visually, of like the what she painted, because she was talking about the directions and how this particular part of like we went in through darkness and now we're coming into the light was like the most beautiful for me. So what were you guys thinking as we were in the final door part before we came out?
I think for me, I got this sense of like, this is very familiar. Like I've been here before, I've done this before, and it was really reassuring to feel like that safe in that moment.
I think I felt freedom. I don't know. I felt like I was able to leave things behind, that they were taken care of, that the door was closed to those things that I left there, that there was no more work to be done. And I just felt like I could move forward. I was in this next, part of this, and I just felt free for the first time in a really long time. We tend to carry a lot of things with us, and that felt like I don't know, I just felt freedom.
Yeah. And there was something about that entire experience that also felt like we had opened up the portal to a different dimension or something that was not in the physical plane that we're used to being on, as crazy as that might sound to some of you who are not into this kind of stuff, but maybe you're hearing about this for the first time. The only way that I can describe it is that it almost felt dreamlike, right? Like sometimes where it feels, well, I'm a very vivid dreamer, but like when things just don't even feel like it's of this world. And it was such a gift to be able to experience that. We were in there for the span of like maybe about 3 hours. We were in there for a while. And
Really?
yeah, I think it was because I only remember because we were late for dinner.
Oh,
And I knew that we started around 4 and dinner was like supposed to be at 7. And yeah. And so we were late. But, anyways, that's when we came out and I felt the coldness kind of like hit my skin. Do you guys remember that sensation? I just remember thinking, like, I have not felt
It was
cold this
raining.
entire trip. Oh, was it raining?
It
it
was
was
raining. Yeah, it felt
Interesting.
amazing to be like cleansed.
like
I don't know. It was just this
all the
whole,
way through.
it was lovely. It was like the most loveliest thing. Like I was drenched in gratitude. And then
Mhm.
here comes the rain. And it just was like, it was so poetic. Like the entire thing was just so incredibly poetic. But the rain just kind of, man, it put a nice little bow right on top of this like present that we were receiving.
You're right, it was because I remember we had to then go out and try and catch a taxi to get back to the place where we were staying. And it was raining and I was there, we were all in our bathing suits, so it was fine. I remember thinking like that night I got like the best night of sleep too. I guess because of what we had done, but it was also like just also very physically tiring. But I remember thinking to myself, I can't wait to do this again. I'm curious, after you guys walked out, how did you feel that night? I know you obviously took your reflections with you, Brenda, and you wrote something a couple of days later, and I think it's absolutely beautiful, like the sentiment of what you released. But how did you all feel after that experience?
I always got to bring the weird in. I mean, that's just my job, I think. I don't know. But when I was in there, I feel like I received a gift because I received this incredible, this like in my mind's eye, I received this crystal skull with a citrine crystal right in the middle of it. And it was really profound. And even though I still don't quite understand what it was, but it was in my mind's eye the entire time. Not the entire time, but probably middle throughout the end. But I knew that it was a gift, and I didn't quite understand what gift it was. When I like ground and connect and meditate, I actually bring that in. Definitely felt connected to earth.
Yeah, I very much felt like full of gratitude. Back to this here. I'm gonna read it. I wrote it all in Spanish. I don't normally like write in Spanish. I'm trying to make sense of it. But I wrote like, este templo lo conozco, me siento cómoda, me siento libre. Tus lindas aromas y medicina llenan mi cuerpo. Todos tus elementos tocaron mi ser. Estoy presente, llena de placer, dulce y completa. So just feeling a sense of like safety and gratitude.
That was really beautiful.
And I love that it was in a way that you don't normally, like you said, you don't normally write in Spanish, but like that's what came out of you. And I also felt like the entire time we were there in Tulum that we had the protection of the land and that there was a strong, I don't know, maybe it was something about being closer to where we all come from, right? Our ancestors were there working alongside with us, through us. And hearing you say that you don't normally write in Spanish and then that's what came out through you, like it was just another reminder. I remember thinking, I was reflecting on this. Every retreat that I've had, water is always pretty strong and present, whether it be a thunderstorm passing through or the water nearby. And the reminder right now that you gave me, Roxy, that when we came out of the Temazcal, that it started raining. For me, the water is so cleansing, right? It's like a washing away of the stuff that we no longer need, but also a washing away of all the stuff that is no longer going to tether us to the past. And will open up the door to a new version of who we are so that we can have the change that we're seeking, that we want in order to change our lives or to make a shift in how we are approaching the world in which we live. And so I just want to thank both of you for being so open today and for sharing your experience. I think back on this particular retreat, and we did so much in the span of a week. We had a physical excursion that brought out different parts of folks on the trip. And then we had this towards the very end. I think we had like a day or two left after we did this. And it felt like it's what glued our group together because we had gone into the portal of having a death and then being reborn on the other side. So for me, the next time that I am leading a retreat somewhere where there is the ability to do something like this, I'll definitely be pulling it in because it is such a beautiful experience to not only witness those who are coming along, but to also get to experience it myself. Any final parting words before we close out our time together?
I want to say that like it was so powerful to know that like the whole group was BIPOC. Like that made it just that much more safe to truly like be myself and show up how I needed to show up.
Definitely a safe space the entire time. It's lovely to be. I'm definitely an introvert, even though I'm surrounded by people all the time. I'm an introvert by nature, but I love being around really strong, independent people, but women in general. Even if there aren't words being shared in a moment, like I just feel really good in group, even if I want to be by myself. And you gave us the opportunity to be a part of group, a part of community, to have our own time. This Temazcal was in group, but it really was, within ourselves. And the opportunity was just incredible. So I really want to thank you. Like I love all these things that you kind of bring out, and then I don't know, there are just opportunities that I really enjoy, but especially being around really strong, independent women.
Yes. And it is always a joy to be able to be in community, be in space where we are all kind of walking along this path of self-discovery together. It's honestly a gift. It really is something I am grateful for every time I open and close circle. And I'm always counting down the days until I get to do that again. So I want to thank you guys for showing up and for all of the support over the years, because you guys have been there since the beginning.
So, all the sensory experiences, I very much feel them. Like when I think back to that, I can smell things and I can feel like the vibration in my body when I was like drumming my legs. I just recently went to the Natalia Lafourcade concert, and one of her songs just like put me in that space like instantly. And I'm trying to remember like what the name of the song is, but Maria la Curandera by Natalia
I
Lafourcade.
love that song. Yes.
And I think when she, especially the parts where she's talking about like, cúrate mi niña con amor del bonito, del más bonito. And she like goes through like all of the herbs, like different herbs. And I mean, it's been what, like a year since we went there. And instantly that song took me back to that moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're actually recording this almost exactly 1 year to the date when we went. We left. Oh, yeah, that's incredible. That wasn't on purpose. I didn't know that we were going to record this a year later. So I'm glad that we all still remember the experiences that we had. And for those of you listening, something about Brenda that you may not know is that she has like I don't know if you still have it, but I remember when I went over there when I was pregnant from one of my prenatal doula appointments with you, you had like your own little mini apothecary. So I'm not shocked or surprised that like that is kind of what you've pulled in, right, from the memory of that experience, not just the scent, but then also the connection to the herbs. And then obviously the song that like brought that back out for you. there is something that's really beautiful about that connection to earth, especially when we think about what we went into, right? That the Temazcal is supposed to be the symbolic womb of Mother Earth, and we all went in there. And one of the gifts that we're given by Mother Earth are the things that she allows us to grow so that we can use to heal ourselves. One of those being herbs, and then for me, the one that I'm very connected to is cacao. So thank you for pulling that in, and definitely make sure to check it out. I'm gonna I'll leave it in the show notes.
That we can tap into that moment, whatever you left with and whatever comes up with you. Like, I feel like, I mean, right now, because through that song that came back to me so quickly, like I can tap into that moment instantly just by listening to that song or thinking of the smell of grapefruit. And that's such a beautiful gift.
Yeah. As I run to the kitchen to hope that I have a grapefruit so I can cut it open and smell it.
Thought about buying one yesterday just so I can get back to this feeling. So
why don't we just go back?
Right.
Let's go. Let's do it. I have stuff brewing for next year that I can't wait to share with you guys, but not yet. So thank you guys again for joining me on this week. I really appreciate the time and for you guys sharing your energy with the listeners. I will include more information in the show notes for those of you that are interested in learning more about what a temazcal is, and to also hear the song that Brenda was referencing. Until next week, bye. Thank you so much for tuning in for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, please feel free to reach out on social media. I love getting your messages and hearing when you're listening to the episodes. And if you haven't already, please be sure to follow this on whatever platform you're listening to it on and leaving a 5-star review. I will see you on the next episode.